Welcome to Dramas, Dreams, and Drollery. My name is Mark, and I am the creator of this channel and all material presented on it. Unfortunately, I have no Christmas story to offer you this time. But the tale that you will soon hear is happy and appropriate for the whole family. The words Dogma and Catspaw have intrigued me for much of my life. Aside from their true meanings, which I shall discuss in a moment, the words can be disassembled to produce new words that suggest mother of a dog and father of a cat. In March of 2007, I decided to write a story linking these unusual terms. If you are unfamiliar with the words, you should know that dogma means a principle or opinion concerning faith or morals. Catspaw means a dupe, someone who's used by others for their own personal advantage. So here is the story, Dogma and Catspaw. Thousands of cat mummies have been discovered along the Nile in Egypt, attesting to the exalted status of that creature in ancient times. According to archaeologists, pharaohs proclaimed cats to be sacred animals around 2500 BC. Deities of the Old Kingdom included a feline-headed goddess named Ubasti. But nearly 1,000 years passed between the deification and the domestication of the animal. It took the Egyptians that much time to contain the creature's wild and independent behavior. Obviously, they were not wholly successful, for in our era, cats still often display an uncompromising spirit. Despite their irrepressible nature, we regard cats with awe, not only for physical qualities of agility, sleekness, and grace, but for an air of mystery that seems to surround them. Highbrows like Colette and T.S. Eliot have celebrated their strange and fascinating ways. Ordinary humans of diverse cultures swear that cats possess occult powers. Even people who have no affection for the animals generally concede that cats hold a special place among God's handiwork. In contrast, dogs have a different reputation. Evolved from wolves, they originally hunted in packs, subordinating their individual wills to that of the group leader. By making themselves the pack chiefs, humans tamed dogs about 10,000 years ago. The first domesticated animals, canines, became our hunting partners and constant companions. For their sociability and loyalty, we call dogs man's best friend, but we do not treat them as equals. Unlike cats, they fail to mesmerize us with unearthly actions. On the contrary, they seem an open book, one that is easily read and digested. Perhaps for this reason, and for their docility, we regard them as inferior and commonplace. At times, we speak disparagingly of dog days, of a dog's life, or of events going to the dogs. There are no comparable terms for cats. In the human mind, cats are aristocrats of the animal kingdom, and canines mere commoners. Therefore, it was altogether appropriate for the upper middle class archers of Greenwich, Connecticut, to select a cat for their first family pet. Social climbers and aspiring millionaires, they wanted an animal compatible with their self-image. When their only child, Gabrielle, reached the age of 3, father and mother took her to the Cartier Pet Emporium, where they purchased a purebred female Siamese for a sum of money equal to their monthly house payment. With a fawn-colored coat shading into cream on the chest and belly, a face mask of deep seal brown, and eyes as blue as a Tahitian lagoon, the creature elicited oohs and ahs for its beauty. Equally striking was the animal's regal bearing, a blend of hauteur and self-confidence. The archers named her Mystique. Inevitably, the pet enjoyed a pampered life. When she refused to consume ordinary cat food, Tiffany Archer experimented with various combinations of meat and fish before discovering that grated salmon satisfied the creature's palate. Fastidious about beverages, too, Mystique drank only non-fat milk and filtered water. She spent most of the daylight hours perched on a silk pillow in the family room. At night, she slept on a duck-down comforter that bore a monogrammed M. About the time that Mystique settled into her luxurious life with the Archers, another animal found a new home in nearby Stamford, Connecticut. Young Thad Nugent was driving home from work late one afternoon. Waiting at a stoplight, he saw a group of boys throwing rocks at a dog in a vacant lot. Rankled by this barbarous action, Thad pulled his pickup to the side of the road, chased the offenders away, and tried to console the injured victim. Shy and suspicious at first, the creature nevertheless lacked the energy to flee. Lying in the dirt, the dog felt the man's hand caressing its back and heard a voice utter soothing words in soft tones. Soon the grateful animal licked the man's arm. That act of affection convinced Thad to make the animal his. With no license, it appeared to be a homeless wanderer. If left on the street, it would surely fall victim to the merciless boys, a careless driver, or the city's animal control agent. Very carefully, Thad placed the dog on the back of his truck and drove straight home. Home was a shabby apartment in a shabby part of Stamford. Clutter on the floors, dirty dishes in the sink, and grease marks on the doorknobs identified the residence of a bachelor auto mechanic. To the dog, it was heaven. Canned food and table scraps seemed sumptuous to one who had customarily scrounged for sustenance. And what bliss to lie on the rug near the heater when the snow was falling outside. For a time, the young man didn't know what name to give his pet. A large, short-haired creature with a brown spotted coat, sad black eyes, and drooping jowls, it most closely resembled a bloodhound, but there were bodily features that suggested a terrier. Thad finally settled on the name Rufus, which he borrowed from a hapless canine in a comic strip. 2 years of contented living passed for Mystique and Rufus. Then abruptly their worlds turned topsy-turvy. The catalyst for the change was Thad's new girlfriend, Griselda Twyman. She utterly despised dogs. Despite the young man's entreaties, the young woman would not abandon her prejudice. When the couple decided to wed, Griselda laid down an ultimatum. Thad must choose between her and Rufus. Nearly in tears, Thad chose the human. But what to do with the dog? To return to the street where he had found it was out of the question. So was taking it to the pound. No friend or relative would adopt it, and there was no response to his newspaper ad, which offered a lovable companion. In despair and with a guilty conscience, Ted decided to abandon the dog in an upscale neighborhood. Perhaps some kind, rich person would give the animal a good home. On a Saturday morning, Thad fed his pet a large meal. Then he placed the dog in the pickup truck and drove to the affluent city of Coscob. Heartbroken, he went from one street to the next, looking for the perfect spot. After an hour, he hadn't found one. There was always a reason to desist. Thad drove on to the adjacent city of Greenwich. Half an hour of Searching still didn't produce the desired effect. Finally, the young man stopped on a randomly selected street. Deciding that he must act, Fat set Rufus on the sidewalk and sped away with tears in his eyes. For the remainder of the day, the depressed creature wandered about the streets of Greenwich, searching for Thad. In a city with strictly enforced laws against unlicensed animals, he was fortunate to elude the animal control agents. Unaware of his good luck, Rufus spent a miserable night on a front lawn, thinking about the missing supper and the warm spot before the heater. By midday on Sunday, the dog was very hungry. Walking briskly down a street in a lovely neighborhood, he sniffed at everything that might be edible. At that moment, the Archers were returning home from church. As they parked in the driveway across the road from Rufus, 5-year-old Gabrielle was the first out of the car. In one hand, she held a cupcake that had been given to her at church. Seeing the hungry dog, she stepped into the street, extending the cupcake before her. Alerted by her voice, Rufus ran to see what she offered. Suddenly, a teenager, driving at excessive speed, careened around a corner and drove straight towards the two of them. Swerving at the last instant, she avoided the girl, but struck the dog forcefully. For a brief moment, the driver hesitated. Then she stepped on the gas and sped away. Mel and Tiffany Archer had emerged from their vehicle just in time to witness the accident. Horrified, they ran into the street. Though frightened, Gabrielle was fine. Rufus was not. He had sustained severe injuries. Without delay, Mel ran into the house, grabbed a blanket, wrapped it carefully around the dog, and drove to the nearest animal hospital. Having misinterpreted Rufus's run at the cupcake for a brave animal's attempt to save his daughter, the grateful father felt a powerful desire to save the creature's life. $3,000 and 10 days of time brought Rufus back to the Archers. Recovery would be slow. Tiffany wanted to unload the mud at once, but she knew that she must bide her time. Every day, Gabrielle fussed over the poor doggie, while her husband praised the heroic dog and rejoiced at its survival. 2 months after the incident, with the animal apparently restored to normal, Tiffany decided that the time had come to discharge the creature. She was unprepared for the resistance offered by husband and daughter. To them, the dog was now one of the family. Gabrielle's tears finally resolved the matter. Despite the abhorrent prospect of having a common mutt in their house, Tiffany knew that she must yield. As a sign of good sportsmanship, she seized the initiative and named the dog Bannister. Another member of the Archer family was not at all pleased with the decision to accept a newcomer. Mystique fairly bristled at the idea. During the dog's slow recovery, she had watched it receive lavish attention at her expense. Any objective observer would have said that the upstart had supplanted her in the affections of Mel and Gabrielle. Mystique vowed to reestablish the old Archer hierarchy. After all, she was a creature of quality, whereas that dog was a low-class commoner. The newcomer must be taught its place. With a noble feline brain, she could unquestionably outsmart the street mongrel. After some reflection, Mystique devised a multi-phased plan, each step of which would demonstrate her superiority over Bannister and win back the hearts of the Archers. One weekday, soon after the humans had departed for work and school, Mystique ambled up to Bannister with eyelashes blinking and a smile on her face. "Well, how are you feeling?" she asked. Having been ignored by the cat during his entire tenure in Greenwich, Bannister was surprised by the cordial greeting. Fine, he replied. Batting her eyes, Mystique said softly, I hope you didn't think me aloof. Your condition seemed so grave that I thought it best to leave you in peace until you made a full recovery. Oh, that was mighty nice of you. Now we can be friends, can't we? Sure, why not? Well, you know, humans think that cats and dogs can't get along, but I have no prejudices against your kind. How about you? Me? No, I don't dislike cats. Truth is, I've seen very few of them in my life. Tiffany Archer seems to think that you're a very special cat. Mystique batted her eyes once more. Well, she and others do pay me many compliments. It's probably more for my brains than for my beauty. Well, if that's true, you sure must be smart, 'cause you certainly are beautiful. Mystique coyly turned her head and fluttered her long eyelashes before saying softly, How nice of you to say that. So, how do you spend most of your time when the Archers are away from home? Oh, I usually sit on the silk pillow in the family room and watch the people and cars pass by outside. From the cozy perch, I feel safe and in control of things. You know what I mean? Not really. We dogs don't sit on perches. Mystique smiled. Well, we all have our own ways. Each day before doing anything else, I always seek spiritual guidance. What do you mean? As a very religious being, I ask the gods to direct my behavior. I begin every day with prayer. Who or what are you praying to? I'm just a street mongrel, so I don't know nothing about gods or praying. Have you noticed in the living room that there's a statue of a cat on a wooden stand? Yeah? Well, I've made that my altar. Every morning after the Archers have departed, I go in there and pray to the goddess Ubasti. She's the deity of ancient Egypt. She is? Yes, she has great powers, and she gives excellent advice. Can dogs pray to her too? Oh, certainly, but it's important that you obey her instructions exactly as given. Would you like to join me in the prayers this morning? Sure. Bannister followed his new friend into the living room. Against a wall near the kitchen entry stood the stand upon which rested the statue. To the dog, the object seemed rather ordinary. That's a goddess, he asked. Mystique laughed. Not really, she said. I use it merely as a vehicle to transport my prayers to the true goddess. Ubasti understands. Okay. What do I do? Begin by chanting Ubasti, Ubasti, Titi Titi Boo. Keep saying that while you clear your mind to receive her message. She's going to say something to me? Perhaps. It depends on the intensity of your faith and on her own will. Bannister settled himself on the carpet before the statue. To concentrate on the task, he closed his eyes before uttering the sacred verse. By the 40th repetition, he felt discouraged. The goddess was unresponsive. How long am I going to do this? He asked. Keep trying. You must have faith. Bannister tried again with greater fervor. Still no message from the deity. He halted after 70 repetitions. Was disappointed, he muttered, Oh, I guess Ubasti doesn't have anything to say to me. Well, let me try. I usually succeed. Mystique began to chant. Within seconds she stopped. Then she said solemnly, "Yes, dear goddess, I will obey."
I didn't hear nothing.
Ubaste doesn't speak out loud for everyone to hear. She speaks within your mind. Today she did give me a message. She said that she was pleased to receive your worship. However, until you have gained sufficient faith, I am to serve as your intermediary with her. For now, at least, you will have to send messages to her through me. To demonstrate your commitment, Ubaste instructs you to accomplish a task.
Ubaste wants me to do something?
Yes. You see that lovely sofa over there?
Yeah?
Well, go over there and chew up the cushions. Scratch and bite them until they're ragged.
You sure that Ubaste wants me to do that? The archers are going to get real mad at me.
Don't worry about their anger. The archers are mere mortals. Ubaste is a goddess with great wisdom. She knows what she's doing.
But
Oh, don't delay. Have faith.
Okay.
With a sigh, Bannister walked to the sofa, eyeing it carefully and noting that it was beautiful and expensive. He hesitated to carry out his work. Get to it. The goddess has spoken. Bannister began to bite the middle cushion, but his heart was not in the effort. Get serious. You can do much more. I would help, but my teeth and claws are not nearly as powerful as yours. Surrendering to the appeal, the dog bit and scratched ferociously. Dirt stains and a long tear appeared on the cushion. After 5 minutes, Mystique terminated the project. I think that's sufficient, she said. Ubaste will be well pleased. And so will I, thought the cat, envisioning the reaction of the archers. That evening, Mystique felt restless. The archers came home at the usual hour, but no one entered the living room to discover the damaged cushion. 2 hours passed. After dinner, the 3 humans went into the family room to watch television. Maybe they wouldn't learn about the sofa for days. Mystique couldn't wait. She went to see the dog. Bannister, she said softly, it seems that no one has discovered your work on the sofa. Why don't you get them to see what you have done?
Well, I'm afraid they'll be mad at me.
Oh, nonsense. How could anyone be angry at you for obeying the orders of a goddess?
Suppose you're right. Okay, I'll do it.
The family was midway through their favorite comedy show when Bannister approached them. He began to whine and bark. Mel told him to be quiet, but the dog persisted. Finally, Tiffany caught on. He's trying to tell us something, she said. I think he wants us to follow him. Hearing these words, Bannister became very excited. With tail wagging, he led them into the living room. Mystique followed closely. She didn't want to miss the fun. Tiffany's shriek was the first indication of discovery. Soon, husband and wife fulminated with abusive language. Even Gabrielle was saying, "Bad doggy." But lifting the cushion to assess the damage, Tiffany uncovered an object hidden below it. There's the missing camera, she said. For the past 2 months, I've been searching for it. What lucky timing. Tomorrow I was going to buy another. So that's what Bannister was telling us. He knew the camera was there, but he couldn't get to it. We can't blame him for tearing up the cushion. Actually, we owe him a big apology. Better than that, a big reward. The camera's expensive. Replacing the cushion is nothing compared to the cost of replacing the camera. Following these words, Mel kissed the dog on top of its head. Gabrielle hugged the animal and said, "Good doggy." Even Tiffany smiled. She had to admit that Bannister had saved them a lot of money. Only Mystique was miffed. She wondered how such a dumb creature could be so lucky. For his action, Bannister received a tenderized sirloin steak. In view of the outcome of this episode, Mystique decided to delay implementation of her plan's second phase. For the cat, there was one positive compensation. Bannister told her privately that he was now a believer. Mystique chuckled the next morning when she heard the fool chanting the worthless mantra, "Ubasti, Ubasti, Titi Titi Boo." 4 days later, the cunning feline was sitting on her perch, sketching out details of the next operation. The basic idea was to have Bannister drag a dead bird or animal into the house. To Tiffany, nothing could be more horrendous. While considering how to proceed, Mystique observed through the window another cat leaping over the fence onto the Archer property. In its mouth was a dead mouse. A few seconds later, a second cat cleared the fence and chased the first cat out of the yard. The action happened so swiftly, Mystique barely understood what had transpired. But noting the mouse on the lawn, she instantly recognized an opportunity. It was as if Ubasti had answered a prayer before it had been said. In 20 minutes, the Archers would be home. She had to think fast. Envisioning the return of the family led the cat to recall an important fact. Gabrielle was always the last one to enter, and she had the bad habit of failing to close the door behind her. Mystique went at once to the canine dupe and said, "Bannister, I have a favor to ask of you."
What's that?"
"A short while ago, I communed with Ubasti. She told me to bring her an offering. So I asked what she wanted. You won't believe her reply. She said she wanted a dead mouse. I was quite surprised by the response, but how could I question the mandate of a goddess? She said that I would find a dead mouse on the back lawn and that I should store it overnight in your food dish."
Why my dish?"
"Well, how should I know? But the goddess has spoken. Now, this is the favor I want of you. At the moment, I have a toothache. Carrying that mouse inside might be painful. Besides, I'm supposed to be a house cat. The Archers don't want me to go outside. Would you please bring it in for me? You know that habit that Gabrielle has of leaving the door open when she enters. That would be the perfect opportunity for you to retrieve the mouse. Place it in your dish and wait for the goddess's magic to work." How could Bannister refuse? It took a little less than a minute from the moment he raced out the door until he had the mouse in the dish. Mystique's heart leaped with excitement when the Archers reached home 5 minutes earlier than usual. Unfortunately, they went straight to their rooms. Mystique tried unsuccessfully to lure them to the dead creature. She just had to be patient. Sooner or later, they would make the discovery, and then the fun would start. A smile passed over the cat's face about an hour later when she heard Tiffany reminding Mel to feed the dog. Mystique would have preferred to have Tiffany make the discovery herself. Mrs. Archer made the most delightful shrieks, but things don't always work out exactly as one wants. Nevertheless, the cat followed swiftly on the man's heels. Suddenly, Mel shouted, "Honey, come here! I want to show you something." Mystique could hardly contain her mirth. She braced herself for the inevitable shriek. But Mel squelched it before it could emerge. He exclaimed, "That amazing dog caught a mouse before we even knew it was in the house. Isn't that something? He's worth his weight in gold. I'll have to do something special for him again." Mystique's mouth fell open. Why should that mutt get credit for something untrue? The cat wanted to tell her masters that the dog had brought the mouse inside, but she couldn't. She didn't speak human language. And then while she sulked and pondered, Tiffany offered the ultimate insult. She asked, "Why didn't you catch that mouse, you naughty thing? I thought cats were the great mousers." Mystique burned inside that evening, watching Bannister consume another sirloin steak. The cat spent the next few days reviewing her plan. Phase 1 and Phase 2 had both ended in failure. But why? After considerable thought, she attributed the defeats to bad luck. That dumb mutt had had his ball of chance bounce his way on 2 occasions. With careful planning, it would not happen again. Mystique set to work on Phase 3. This time, she would get Bannister to dig a hole in the flower bed. Tiffany was quite proud of her roses. Finding the dog there would surely raise her wrath. But before implementing the scheme, the cat played devil's advocate with herself, studying the plan from every angle. She could not detect a flaw. Tomorrow would be the day. It was Saturday. By custom, Tiffany spent that morning working in the garden, starting about 9 o'clock. Wanting her mistress to observe Bannister's action in the flowers, Mystique met with the dog at 8:45. She told him, "I have an important assignment for you today. Ubasti says that a great treasure is hidden on this property and we are to locate it. Unfortunately, I am only a cat, and cats lack digging skills. The treasure is buried in the rose area of the flower garden. You alone are capable of uncovering it. Of course, you alone will receive all the glory, but that is fair." This time, Ubasti offered no resistance whatsoever. He had learned from previous experience that Ubasti always gave wise counsel. Gabrielle was playing ball in the backyard, and she'd left the back door open. Seizing the moment, Bannister dashed outside. At a spot near the fence, in the center of the rose area, he sniffed about. Detecting a sweet scent, he began to dig. By the time the hole was a foot deep, Tiffany had emerged from the house, trowel in hand and a large straw hat on her head. Spotting Bannister, she dropped the tool and ran toward the animal. "Stop that, you bad dog!" she shouted. Gabrielle dropped her ball and approached curiously. Mel was attracted to the scene by Tiffany's voice. From the edge of the flower bed, the 3 humans noted a large container in the hole. Using Tiffany's trowel, Mel dug it out of the ground. The object was a gaudily ornamented jewel box. Though evidently buried a long time, it still retained a slight odor of perfume. Even without a key, the archers had little difficulty opening it. Inside were miscellaneous rings, brooches, bracelets, and necklaces. On Monday, Tiffany carried the box to an appraiser. He valued the pieces at $50,000. Apparently, they had been the property of the house's previous owner, an eccentric old lady who had died intestate and without relations. According to the police, the jewelry now belonged to the archers. The story made the front page of the local newspaper. Bannister received not only the largest stake ever, but a big hug from Tiffany. The woman of the house agreed with her husband that the dog had a wonderful nose. "Must be the bloodhound in him," said Mel. Mystique gritted her teeth and muttered, "How is this possible?" Not one to give up easily, the aristocrat had regained her self-confidence within days. After the visits by reporters and well-wishers had subsided, Mystique began to plot once more. For Phase 4, she had a vague outline of a scheme which would end with the dog getting caught eating human food in the pantry. As she stood in the kitchen studying the scene, Bannister burst into the house from outside. He was panting heavily. "What's going on, Misty? Misty, what's going on?" Mystique asked.
"There's a big black and white cat outside. I think he's trying to take over this property. At least he treated me pretty roughly."
This information inflamed Mystique. "A new cat thinks he's going to take over? No way that's going to happen. This mutt is already taking up too much room around here. I'll teach the intruder a lesson." Having reached a decision to defend her territory, Mystique charged out the back door. She knew that the archers wanted her to stay indoors, but this was an emergency. Almost as soon as her feet hit the lawn, Mystique came to a halt. The rival was not in sight. She looked right, then left, then behind bushes. Nothing. Suddenly, from around the corner, she heard a noise. It resembled an animal rubbing against plants. Mystique decided to attack by surprise. Perhaps the cat would turn and run away. Putting on her most ferocious face and making her most vicious snarls, the archer pet raced around the corner of the house at full speed. In an instant, she was face to face with a skunk. Frightened, the animal turned around, but it didn't run. It squirted instead. Mystique knew at once that she had made a terrible error. Her ears burned when Tiffany unloaded on her later. "Oh, how could you go outside and fight with a skunk? That's not the sort of behavior I expected from a purebred animal. Why can't you control yourself like Bannister?" Following the denunciation, Mystique was subjected to deodorizing baths and relegated to the service porch until the scent had fully dissipated. Over the next few days, while reflecting on the latest mishap, the exile could not shake away a recurring thought. Was that mutt so dumb that he didn't know the difference between a cat and a skunk? Or had he shrewdly lured her into that fiasco? In short, could that street mongrel be a canine Einstein? This idea lingered in Mystique's mind even as the embarrassment of the skunk episode receded. She began to observe the dog more closely. Every word and every action of his took on a new significance. Why did he chuckle as he passed the television set? Was he planning to involve her in a television misadventure? Mystique noted that Bannister no longer attended religious services at the Ubasti altar. Why not? Had he abandoned the faith, or had he ever embraced it in the past? What could she use to lead him astray in the future? By now, the hubbub about the buried treasure had ended. Friends and relatives no longer stopped by to offer congratulations, and the local paper had nothing more to say about the subject. After deciding to keep the jewels, Mel and Tiffany placed them in a safe deposit box in the local bank. Unaware of this, two unsavory characters in the Bronx plotted to exploit the Archer windfall. Big Barry Murtaugh and Oscar Villarreal were small-time criminals with long prison records. From television, they learned of the Archers' good fortune. Simple-minded men, they had not even considered the possibility that the jewels might have been sold or stored. They expected the valuables to be awaiting liberation in the Archer residence. About 10 days after the news story, Oscar and Big Barry arrived in Greenwich to get their fair share. They spent most of the day reconnoitering the town and the neighborhood. After dark, they waited for the family to retire for the night. From their parked car across the street, the men saw the household lights go out about 10:30. They decided to wait until midnight. A few minutes after the downstairs grandfather clock struck 12, Mystique was awakened by the sound of a window opening in the family room. The frightened cat scampered upstairs. At that moment, Bannister was sleeping peacefully in the second-floor hall outside the bedroom of Mel and Tiffany. Awakened by Mystique's panic-stricken flight, the dog also became frightened. Unable to determine the source of the danger, he sought refuge on the first floor. But bolting down the stairs, he collided with the two intruders. In a moment, lights flashed on, and Mel came running out of his room with a gun from his bedside nightstand. At the foot of the stairs, he found the intrusive pair unconscious, with Bannister lying on top of them. While Mel tied up the inept burglars, Tiffany called the police. Another front-page story, this time with a photo of Bannister. More reporters and well-wishers. Mel posted a sign in front of the house that read, "Wrongdoers beware. This is the home of Bannister." A movie producer contacted the family to discuss a possible film. Mystique cried when she heard Tiffany tell a reporter, "Our dog is the most wonderful pet in the whole world. He charged bravely down the stairs to defend us from the perpetrators while our cat was fleeing in panic to our bedroom." Mystique spent 3 days in isolation, brooding and reflecting, before making an inevitable decision. Bannister was a genius, perhaps a god. Serendipity was one thing, but making long-shot events go your way time after time had to be more than luck. Obviously, a giant brain functioned in that canine cranium. One morning, Mystique humbly and fearfully approached the enlightened one. "Bannister," she began, I beg your forgiveness. I've underestimated your wisdom and failed to show you the proper respect."
"Oh, don't worry. Everything's cool with me."
Bannister started to walk away. "Well, wait, there's more. I want to learn from you. Can you teach me how to win in every aspect of life?"
"Oh, don't know about that."
To what do you attribute your great success? Apparently not Ubasti."
"No, I learned from a more powerful god."
Tell me, cried Mystique.
Shortly after the incident involving the dead mouse, I was walking round town one morning. By luck, I ran into a bulldog named Roscoe. Telling him the story of my life with the archers and you, I mentioned how the goddess Ubasti had helped me. He scoffed at the idea. According to him, my triumphs had probably been coincidental. Boy, did that deflate me. And then he asked why any self-respecting dog would revere a feline deity when there existed a more powerful canine god. Soon he told me about the cult of Puwango. In Webster Park, there's a small statue honoring a dog that had saved the life of a rich woman. Greenwich dogs use that statue as an altar to honor Puwango. His followers achieve amazing triumphs.
Can any animal become a follower?
Sure, you just have to have faith. Tomorrow, after the archers have gone out for the day, we can go together to the park.
Well, what do you do there?
Oh, we pray, of course. Between now and then, you can practice the sacred chant. Puwango, Puwango, waka, waka, waka.
Mystique's blue eyes lit up. A lump filled her throat. "Sounds wonderful," she said. "Does the god tell you what to do?"
"Oh, yes, in great detail. I'll let you in on a secret. Since you got Ubasti to help me, I've been wanting to get Puwango to help you. Just yesterday, I asked the god if there was anything you might do to improve your life."
Mystique's ears perked up and a smile covered her face. Leaning forward anxiously, she asked, "What did Powango say?"
Well, he proposed a daring and ambitious project. I must warn you that it might get you into serious trouble with the archers. But you aren't afraid of risks, are you? Especially when the powerful god Powango commands you to take them.
End of story. That was fun, wasn't it? I had fun writing it. I'll let you decide whether Bannister was an extremely lucky dog or a canine Einstein. My next programming will be on January 1, the start of the new year and of the new decade. So it will be appropriate for me to present something new at that time. Don't forget that I retain the copyrights to all my works. Thanks for watching Dramas, Dreams, and Drollery.